I'm Derek Wells. I'm a session guitar player and producer in Nashville. Play on records for people like Hardy, Morgan Wallen, Blake Shelton, Carrie Underwood, Lauren Elena, people like that. So today I want to tell you a little bit about what it means to me to be a session musician, to be hired to go work on someone's music, and kind of my thought process on how I move through that, and the questions I ask, the things I consider, and just a little bit of my workflow. So when I get called for a session, I usually get very, very little info. And that may be a little bit Nashville centric, but even in my experience with working outside of this city and other genres outside of country, the information you get on the front end is very limited. If we're lucky, it's an artist that maybe has a body of work that you could maybe do a little homework on, but even that can be deceptive sometimes because for all you're getting brought in to do, this artist version 2.0, or they're wanting to make, a big left turn. Oftentimes a situation we experience here in Nashville is artists coming from outside of the genre to come make a country record. So in those instances, you can really get stuck, even in a homework perspective, in the spot where you try to reference their back catalog, but none of that actually may be applicable to what they're trying to do or the purpose you're there to fulfill or why you're being hired. So in terms of like, prep work before the session, it's like, man, that's just where your 10,000 hours comes in. Like, I always say, like, when you hire somebody like myself or like, one of my buddies or the people that work in this town, in this studio, you're paying us for all that. Like, you're paying us for the 10,000 hours we put in to show up and be able to like contribute to your thing. You're not really paying us for the session. Like that part I do for free. You're paying me for all the work I've done to show up and be able to jump into, your musical pool and start swimming. When I get booked on sessions, it typically is going to come from either a producer, sometimes directly the artist or songwriter, or typically there might be like a production assistant or production coordinator person involved in the booking of the players. And how they landed on me can come from one of a million angles. It could be that there's a history there, and they work with me, and there's a kind of a tried and true scenario there. I've had people, ask to get me booked on their project because they read my name in liner notes, or they know of other records I've played on, and they're a fan of that, and they want me to come in there because of that kind of stuff. And then sometimes, even in a town like this, occasionally, people that have worked for a long, long, long time in the business might just want to mix it up. And, I still sometimes will get calls from producers or artists that I've been aware of for a lot of time in my career, but never worked with directly. And then you get that call and you're like, man, why'd you call me for this record? The guy that's always played guitar on your records is awesome. And it's like, I just want to mix it up. Sometimes they're just looking for a fresh flavor or a new restaurant to go to that week sometimes too. And, who can fault them? But typically by the time they've called me, it's going to come through one of those channels. So when I'm going into a session, just mentally trying to prepare, I do want to be cognizant of like, how clear my brain is or how busy my brain is. And, particularly too, if you are in a spot where you're going to go and you're going to create, what we would think of as like popular music, regardless of the genre. I don't really think it does me or anyone any favors if I'm like driving into the studio listening to freaky jazz or something on the way, stuff that can really like affect my instincts in the moment. So oftentimes, I'm just trying to like, honestly, I'll drive to the session in silence a lot. Just try to be thinking. If I feel like any of my equipment needs any care or something beforehand, I'm always going to make sure and show up a little early if like strings need changing or something. Luckily I can kind of earmark that stuff the days prior in a session going, ooh, the Strat's going to need some new strings soon. And I just try to make sure that everything's there. And I'm a big like show up early guy. I like to get there early. This gear moves from studio to studio. Things happen, things get plugged in wrong. And, if there's something weird or something has died overnight or something's not working or a guitar busted a string in transit, like I just want to make sure for my own comfort level that I'm there early enough to like get my sounds with the engineer. Maybe there's an opportunity to ask a few questions before everyone shows up. Like, hey, do you know what we're doing today? Are we rocking today? Is the stuff lighter? Have you heard any of the music? And that kind of stuff all just helps me, get situated and be prepared to work like when the red light comes on, so that like once everyone's there and an artist is there and it's like go time and everyone's like on the clock, that I'm not like, oh wait, oh shit, I'm not getting sound to my amp. I don't know, because that stuff does happen. Like stuff works perfectly one day, or you come back from lunch and all of a sudden something's not working, a cable's gone bad or whatever. Like that's part of it, and people understand. But as much as I can do to mitigate those instances on the front end, that kind of stuff also helps me like just be prepared to start the work.